ค่ะเดี๋ยว10 โมงเริ่มนะ
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jason. I am actually the account manager from EIU for the Ministry of Commerce, Thailand. I'm based in Thailand. I'm based in Singapore, and today I'm very happy to bring you through our platform viewpoint. So this session is being recorded right now. Feel free to reach out to me or Kun Sukanya or Kun Pakwadi after this session if there are any follow-up questions. So without any further ado, let me just go ahead and share with you my screen. Okay, I believe everybody should be able to see my screen at this point. Please let me know if you're not able to see so. So I believe everyone would have, sorry. Everyone is able to see my screen? Okay, so if there's no issues, let me just continue. So I believe everyone will be able to get login access from Kun Sukanya. So if you do face any login issues as well, please feel free to let me know. So this is actually our EIU viewpoint. Over here is where you can get a lot of information regarding a high-level overview of what's happening in the global economy or even down to a respective countries. So to navigate through this website, okay, there is actually it's a very simple layout. So what you see is the main navigation toolbar at the top. I think there's someone talking in the background, if I'm not wrong. Okay, never mind, let's continue. So to navigate this website, it is actually very simple. As you can see from this main navigation toolbar, you have the home, we have the geography, we have industries, topics, risks, current teams, reports, as well as data. So this is how you will navigate through the EIU viewpoint. And once you have logged in, you will actually come on to this main homepage. So this homepage is actually what we call the global page. And on this global page is where you can get a very high-level overview of what's happening in the global economy. So I take your attention to the right. As you can see from here, you can see there is actually a video. So this video is actually updated on a monthly basis. And as you can see, we have updated for the month of May, and it will be very updated for the month of June very shortly. So I take your attention to the left. If you can see, there's this thing called one-click report. So throughout our entire websites, you will notice that we do have many one-click reports. So once you've clicked on this one-click report, this gives you a very good summary of everything that is listed on our website. So to navigate this report, you just have to actually navigate through the links on the left. So for example, if you want to move to the exchange rates, you want to know what's happening on a global basis for the exchange rates, you can actually click on exchange rates, for example. So over here on our reports, you'll find we both have a quantitative as well as a qualitative aspect. So that means that we don't just have data, as you can see from the screen, but at the same time, we also do have a whole text to explain what our analyst is thinking, what our editorial team is thinking. So for example, under the key trends, you can see what EIU is thinking with regards to the global economy. We talk about the Eurozone, we talk about the Chinese economy, for example, where we actually revise our forecast based on the latest data. We also talk about things that are of importance, such as inflation, as well as oil prices. So if you scroll down this one-click report, we also talk a bit about exchange rates. And as you notice, this one-click report is updated monthly. So if you are looking to understand what's happening on a month-to-month basis, this is actually a very good resource to go to. Another thing that will be very helpful is under this trade and external sector, especially for the ministry. So if you want to understand what's happening from a high-level what's happening in the global economy from a high-level perspective, this is actually a very good way to go to where we provide data. So now you notice in our data, we actually do forecasts out to a couple of years ahead. So here at EIU, we actually do 3 kinds of forecasting. We do a short-term forecast, we do a medium-term forecast, and we do a long-term forecast. So for short-term, that will be within the 1-year time frame where we forecast out to Q1 to Q4. Medium-term will be something on a 5-year time frame where we forecast out to 2027. And lastly, later on, I'll show you how you can actually find the long-term forecast where we actually forecast out to 2050. So as I mentioned earlier, you can get a lot of color on what the numbers are saying through all the different qualitative text at the bottom. And of course, I think something that will be useful, especially in today's world, is looking at the risk scenarios. So under the one-click report, we do have list down all the different risk scenarios that our editorial team is thinking of. So these are things that are not part of our core forecast, but are actually threats to our core forecast as well. Okay, and of course we have commodity prices as well. Now, if I can just take your attention all the way up to the top, to save this report, you can actually click on this print button, and you can actually save this as a PDF for your internal or external distribution. All right, so that will be for the one-click report. All right, now I'm very excited to share that actually here at EIU, we are constantly investing into our platform. So as you can see over here, we do have this button called the Explore Custom View, which is a new function. So we actually launched this, and later on throughout the whole sharing, you notice that we do have many reports on our site. So there might be reports where you might need certain segments of things, and at the same time, there might be reports where you do not need certain segments. So what this custom report builder does is it allows you to actually build your own report. So for example, if you just want trade and you want the risk scenarios in your report along with certain data sets and all, you can actually custom build your report, and this will be updated every time we update everything on the site. So it's just a one-time report building. Okay, so I do encourage you to give this a try after this session. Now, moving down to this segment called the Insights. So Insights is where we actually take a step back and we take a look at certain topics or themes that are of interest. So for example, right now, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence, AI. So as you can see here in June, we actually talk a bit about metaverse with Apple releasing the Apple Vision Pro. We even talk about how companies are using artificial intelligence and what's the kind of future for it. So this is where we take certain interesting topics and we take a deeper dive into it. Feel free to explore under See All Insights, where you can actually look back at some of the other past topics that we actually explore. All right, so I'll just move down to the current themes. So under these current themes is actually a very good segment for you to get information that you are looking for a recurring theme. So for example, if you're looking to understand what's happening with the war in Ukraine, for example, you can come onto here. Or for example, if you want to understand US-China competition, which is at the top of everyone's mind, you can just come onto here and you notice that every topic that is relevant to that, every article that's relevant to that topic will actually be placed under this segment here. So this is a very easy and convenient way for you to actually find all these articles. So whether you're looking for US engagement in the region, or you're looking for the restrictions on China, everything will be over here. And likewise for the other topics like food security, we talk about global goods and services, or environment and sustainability. So this will be under the themes section, also a very good resource for you to check on. All right, so you notice at the bottom, we have like the 5-year forecast, monthly global overview, exchange rates and all. This is actually what I have actually covered early on in the one-click report. So if there's one key thing to take away from today's training, it is that the one-click report will contain all the information you're looking for. And if you are not able to find any information from the site, the one-click report should be your go-to. All right. So I'll just move on now to this industry tab. So under global, you'll notice there are actually 4 different tabs. So if you click on the industries tab, you'll notice that we here at EIU, we cover 6 key industries. So the 6 key industries will be automotive, consumer goods, energy, financial services, healthcare, and telecommunications. So for example, if you go on to one of the different industry page, so for example, if you go on to energy, all right, under energy, you notice that we do have different market segments. So this is true for all the other 5 industries as well. So under energy, we do cover oil and gas, we do cover coal, we do cover electricity, we do cover nuclear and renewable energy as well. So whatever it is that you're looking for, it is encouraged that you can go on to all this industry page to find out all the different segments. And likewise, under insights, this is where you find everything that's relevant to the industry. So for example, under the energy, we talk about natural gas prices, we talk about wind energy. So everything that's relevant, you will find it in this segment here. Similarly, you find that we do have industry teams as well. So industry teams that are relevant to energy. For example, we talk about geopolitics of energy. We talk about the energy transition to net zero. So everything is all under the team section. Okay. So moving down on the industry page, you see that we do have a 10-year forecast. So we do provide, like I mentioned, medium-term and long-term forecast. So likewise, even for the energy consumption, for the global economy, this is something that we do forecast out to. And we do actually have a report, which I'll show you very shortly after this. So before I move on to the report section, you see the third tab under the global economy page is called commodities. So here at EIU, we do cover a couple of key commodities. So if you come further down, you notice we do cover 3 main segments, which will be agriculture, energy, as well as industrial. So under agriculture, as you can see, we do cover all these different items, for example, soybeans, coffee, or even sunflower seed. Under energy, we do also cover not just from industry perspective, but we also cover all these different key commodities under the energy segment. And likewise for industrial, we have all these different raw materials as well. So whether is it whatever is you're looking for, you can always find this under the commodities page. All right, and we also do provide a 5-year forecast for the commodity section. All right, so now I understand this might be a bit confusing. If you're not sure of where to get it, you can always come on to the report section. Under report section, you find that we do have the commodity forecast. So if you're looking for commodities, this is the report you want to go to. If you're looking for the industry reports, under industry forecast, you can find all the different 6 industry reports that we actually do provide. All right, and of course, we do have the one-click report, which I shared at the start of this session. Now, under the archives tab is where you can find something that's dated. So we have actually migrated all the older reports onto Viewpoint. So under this archive section is where you can find reports that are dated. So for example, if you need something that goes all the way back out to 2012, this is where you can actually find these reports under. Okay, so this will be very much for the global economy. Now we move on a bit down to the region where we actually, from a high level, we now start to move a bit further down to get better insights. So for example, if I go on to the Asia page, you'll notice that in terms of the layout, it's actually very similar. So this helps you to navigate the site easily. Under the Asia page, you'll see that we do also have this one-click report. If you click on this, this brings you to what you would have seen similarly for the global one-click report. Under this, you'll find everything that's relevant to Asia. So all the Asian economies, you see the major ASEAN economies, China, India, Japan. And of course, we also do talk a bit about Australasia as well. So even under the risk scenarios, you find that everything is catered for Asia. So everything that is, instead of just everything that's facing the global economy, now this is very much tailored and catered to Asia as well. And just to remind you, you can always save this report as a PDF for your internal or external distribution. Okay, so that would be the one-click report. I just want to bring your attention to the chart on the right. As you can see, we do have many nice and interactive charts on our site. So if you ever want to download them into your report, you can always click on this download function. So you can either save this as a JPEG image, or you can save this as a PDF or even into your Excel as well. So this allows you to save it in different formats. So moving down, you notice that under the regional page, we do have this new segment called latest developments. So under latest developments, this is where you can find things that are very much in sync with the news cycle. But I do want to note that we are definitely not your CNN, your Bloomberg, your news agency. What we do is our editorial team will help you filter away the noise from all this constant news buzz and cycle and help you to take a look and deeper analysis. So for example, things that are happening, for example, like we talk about Nepal's balancing act, we talk about Thailand's request to buy F-35 jets, for example, or we talk about South Korean, the recent summit that happened with the Pacific Islands, for example. So these are things that we actually cover based off on the news cycle as well. So for example, if I take a look at this article, you notice that our articles is segmentized into 3 different things. The first one is we talk about what has happened. So this is very much what you have read in the news, but we dive a bit deeper. We talk about why does it even matter. So this is where our analysts will actually give more color, will give more insights into what's the kind of implications. And last but not least, we do talk about what's next. So this is where we put a bit of our forecasting hat on, and we actually forecast what's probably going to happen in terms of the direction from this news article. And as always, you can always save this as a PDF for your internal or external distribution. So this will be under the latest developments page. You can always move further down, and you notice we do also similarly have an in-depth view. This is very much similar to what you saw on the global page, where we talk about things that are relevant to the Asian economies because we're on the Asia page. So for example, we just put out an article yesterday where an analysis piece where we talk about how China leaders will probably react to a premature slowdown in the Chinese economy. So this is actually a very good way for you to get better insights on important things that are relevant to the economies. Okay, moving down, we also talk about the 5-year forecast, which you can get from the one-click report. This is very much similar to what you have seen earlier, where we provide the data as well as we provide some of the qualitative text to actually explain and give color to the data, because data can paint a story, but without any context, it might be hard to understand the story as well. So with that, I will move on to the country page. So as you can see from the main navigation toolbar under geography, you can click on this drop down. And based on this drop down, you can actually search for a country that is of your interest. So for example, let's go on to United States of America page. Now, coming on to this country page, you notice first and foremost that there is actually a lot more tabs that we do have. So for our country reports, we do actually have 3 key pillars that will be under the politics tab, the economy tab, as well as the policy tab. All right, so before I move on to the politics, economy, and policy tabs, let me just very briefly run through the essential page. So as always, you see on the right, we do have interactive charts that you can save and download. As always, a good resource to go to will always be the one-click report. So if you click on the one-click report, this will bring you to the country report for the country. So in this scenario, this will be for the United States of America. So I take your attention to the left. You will notice that unlike the global one-click report, as well as the regional one-click report, the country report is actually very much more extensive and more in-depth. So we cover things from political stability all the way to election watch, policy trends, fiscal policy, economic growth, inflation, exchange rates, external sector. So it gives you a very deep dive of what's happening in that country. And this is always updated on a monthly basis as well. Okay, so for example, we talk about the political and economic outlook. We talk about some of the fiscal policy, which I know there's a lot of interest about, especially as the Fed is about to meet. We talk about some of the monetary policy as well. We talk about inflation as well. So this is actually a very good resource. And as always, we do provide all the data as well as all the qualitative text for you. I'll cover the business environment shortly after this, but at the same time, under the one-click report, you can also get the industry outlook for that particular country. So for example, for the automotive, or is it for the financial services, for example, these are updated on a quarterly basis as well. And towards the end of the one-click report, this is where you can get all these different charts, which you can definitely use for your own internal report or for your own strategy session as well. And lastly, just to remind you, you can always save the report as a PDF for your own internal distribution. So that will be the one-click report for the country. Moving down, you notice similarly, we do have the latest developments. So everything that is happening for the country, you will find it under the latest development section. We also do take a deeper dive into on a country level. So this is where you will find it on the in-depth view. So anything that is relevant, for example, we talk about anti-ESG sentiment in the US. This is where you find all this under the in-depth view. Okay. So I take your attention to the 5-year forecast. So under the 5-year forecast, we actually, if you expand it out, you see at the bottom, we do provide this demand ahead. So sometimes if you just want to understand what's potentially, what are the things to look out for example, whether is it the next Fed announcement or next GDP estimates, this is actually the segment to go to. At the same time, we also have this segment called a major risk to our forecast. So very similar to what I covered earlier in the one-click report for the global economy. This will be where we look at some of the risks facing the specific country in this instance. All right, so with that, let me move on to the politics tab. So under politics, this is where you can actually see the political structure of a country. So if you want to understand how, for example, politics work in the US, this is actually where you go on to. For latest developments, it's very similar, but this is everything that is relevant to the politics of the country. So everything that's relevant to politics will be found here, but it will also similarly be on the main country page under essential. Same for the in-depth view, we'll not cover on that. So we do provide the 5-year forecast where we talk about political stability. We even have our own proprietary ratings where we actually rate how stable the country is. And from there, you can actually get all this data. You notice policy trends, election watch, international relations, political and institutional effectiveness, all these are all covered under the one-click report. So if you do not want to, if you are not able to find all this, just always go back to the one-click report. Okay, so this will be under the politics tab. At the bottom, you can find even more arbitrary information. For example, the state role in the economy, foreign investment or international agreements. I'll move on to the economy tab. So under the economy tab, this is where you can actually get a lot more information with regards to the economy. And I believe there's a lot of useful information. For example, the inflation rate, the exchange rate, the trade and external sectors. But at the same time, you can also get some of the, you can get more color on the economy. So for example, if you want to understand the GDP by sector of origin, or just understanding the FDI, this is where you can actually come on to, where we provide charts and tables. And early on in my sharing, I talk about how we actually, here at EIU, we actually do long-term forecast. So part of our long-term forecast is under this segment called the long-term forecast, where we talk about the long-term outlook. So when we assess a country's long-term outlook, we actually look at it from different perspectives. The first one we look at is how the initial conditions are, as you can see from here. And we also talk about some of the demographic trends, because that will clearly actually indicate the trajectory of a country. Our modeling for the long-term forecast is actually very much on a supply side basis. All right. We also talk a bit about the external conditions. This is where a lot of the geopolitics comes into play. And last but not least, we also talk about some of the long-term performance owing to technological innovation, for example. All right. And you can get a lot more data over here. So as you can see, just to reiterate, we actually forecast out to 2050. So one more thing about our long-term forecast, which is unique to us as compared to even our competitors in the market, is that we actually incorporate climate change into our model. So when we talk about the long-term forecast, when we forecast out to 2050, we actually do incorporate climate change into our modeling, where we forecast what's the kind of impact, for example, of floodings, what's the kind of impact of like the El Nino for Southeast Asian economies. So this is where you can actually get a lot more color on this, where we actually talk about all these sustainability efforts as well. We also talk a bit about some of the efforts of the government to educate the future workforce, for example, or even international trade and multilateralism. All right, so this will be for the long-term forecast. Now, moving on to the policy tab, if I go on to the policy tab here, this is where actually you can get two key things. The first one will be the fiscal policy as well as the monetary policy. Now, this is also very helpful if you are wanting to understand the policy of a country, of the government towards certain areas. So for example, in the area of human resource, whether you're looking to understand the labor law, or whether you're wanting to understand what's the kind of taxation laws that the country would have, this is actually a very good way to come to understand more on the regulatory requirements. Okay, so this will be the three key pillars for a country. Moving on to this thing called the business environment. Now, clients have shared with us how business environment is actually a very useful tool. So what business environment is where here at EIU, we actually take 11 indicators. So some of these indicators include the political environment, political stability, political effectiveness, all the way down to the policy towards private enterprise and competition. We talk about taxations, we talk about financing, the labor market, infrastructure, etc. We aggregate it, and accordingly, we actually arrive at a score. And based off on this score, you can actually compare it on a global basis or even on a regional basis. So this helps you to justify, certain economies in terms of investment direction, in terms of strategy, especially as there might be companies looking to, for example, invest in the US. This business environment rankings is very helpful for them to understand what is good in that country and what is lacking and how does it compare to the peers in the region. So this is something that is worth taking a look at. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on the business environment. So I'll move on to the industry very quickly, as I have covered a bit earlier for the global economy. On the country basis, we also do cover the 6 key industries. So there will be the financial services, automotive, consumer goods, energy, healthcare, as well as telecommunications. So under each industry, there will be the further market segments. So for example, with all that has happened with the Silicon Valley Bank, for example, if you want to understand more on the financial industry in the US, this is actually a very good page for you to come onto, where you can click on banks. And we actually talk a bit more. We actually even forecast out to 2027 in terms of like some of the key indicators for the industry. We also talk a bit about some of the financial conditions and all. So this gives a lot of good context, a lot of good color, as well as a lot of in-depth explanation on what's happening in the industry. All right. So similarly, you can find a lot of information, a lot of deep dive analysis under the insights segment. So this will be under the industry page. I'll move on to the reports page right now. So again, very similar to what you have seen on the regional page or on the global page, under the report segment is where you can find many reports like the one-click report. We do provide a 5-year forecast report as well. The business environment, which I covered, where we have 11 indicators to assess a country's business environment for companies to operate in. You can also get this under the report as well. We do also have a regulatory environment report. We do also provide some of the industry reports as well. And as always, just to remind you, if you want to look for something that is dated or archived, you can get it under the archive segment over here. At this point, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. If not, I will proceed on to the data tool. So I take your attention to the data tool tab at the top here. If you click on it, this will bring you on to our data tool tab. So for viewpoint, if you are coming on just to get more data, more numbers, you can always come on to this data tool. And there are actually 2 ways where you can actually get the data. So the first one is very straightforward. It's under the quick search function. So for example, if you already know a certain data set that you're looking for, let's just say, for example, we're talking about, we just want to take a look at inflation. So we talk about consumer price index. And for example, if you want to look at the GDP, for example, and so you move on to the next segment under geography. So for example, if I want to take a look at Indonesia, I want to take a look at China, as well as maybe let's take a look at Thailand, for example. So you just click on the search function, and this will actually bring out the table. So from here, you can see that actually, as you've seen earlier, I keyed in 2 different indicators. Under this drop down, you can actually toggle between the consumer price index or the real GDP. So you can toggle accordingly. And over here on the left, you'll notice you can change this from a chart to a table as well, where you are segmentized based on the countries. You can always adjust the frequency. So for example, if I want to adjust to a quarterly basis, I can. And at the top right corner, you can see that you can actually filter this by the date or by the series or by the geography. Now, to remind you, you can always download all these interactive charts. So for example, if you click on download here, you see that you can actually download this as a JPEG, or you can even download this as an Excel function as well. So depending on what you are looking for, you can always download this, whether is it for a report that you're looking to build, or whether is it for just for your own internal distribution. Now, sometimes there might be data sets where you do not fully understand what it actually is, or you might want to know where the data comes from. You can actually scroll down, and under there will actually be a description section for you, where we talk about what this data set is, some of the data specific notes, as well as where this data was sourced from and when it was published as well. Okay. Now, early on, I mentioned to you that we do long-term forecast for some of the key indicators. So under this date toggling, you can actually toggle all the way out to 2050. So for example, for GDP, we do actually forecast out to all the way out to 2050. So you can see for all the 3 countries that I've chosen, I can actually forecast all the way out to 2050. All right, so this will be the first way where you can actually use our quick search function to search for a particular data. The second one, which is a bit more complicated, but it is actually also pretty simple to use, is under the data tree. So if you scroll a bit further down, you will see there's 3 different columns. So the first column on the left is where you can actually find all the different main categories. So for example, right now, I just want to understand perhaps on travel and tourism. So if I click on this drop-down button, this will actually bring me to a subcategory, which I can further expand on. So let's just say I want to understand travel and tourism. If I click on that, this will actually help me bring out to even more a further segment of that travel and tourism. So let's just say I just want to take a look at international tourism arrivals and also departures at the same time. So now having chosen the data set, I'll move on to the middle segment where actually I can choose the country accordingly. So for example, if I want to take a look at China, if I want to take a look at Hong Kong, and let's just say perhaps maybe I just want to take a look at South Korea. All right, so having chosen these 3 countries, I can also choose an aggregate. So of course, this aggregate will be determined by, for example, if I want to take a look at the aggregate for maybe ASEAN, let's just see where is ASEAN. Let's just say maybe I take a look at Asia Pacific, for example. Okay, and then from there, I'll move on to the third column, which is the date. So if I toggle all the way, let's just say I just want to take a look from 2013 all the way to 2025, and I can click View Chart. So this will actually bring out some of the indicators. So as you notice, if there are no particular indicators for that, we will actually display over here. And based on international tourism arrivals, I can see that for China, Hong Kong, South Korea, this is actually some of it. Now you notice that even in our chart, we do have different, like I mentioned, we do forecast. So you see this break area, this is where we is actually part of our forecast, where we actually forecast the international tourism arrivals. Okay, and as always, you can scroll down to get understanding of the description of the data set. Okay, so this will actually be the data tool. It's actually a very useful way, but I do understand that it can actually get confusing because sometimes we do have many different data series, and to understand it, that might be a bit confusing, which is why I mentioned if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Kun Sukanya. All right, so this will be for the data tab. Now I'll bring you attention to the top right corner under methodologies. So if I click on this, so if you want to understand what goes into our model, if you want to understand what goes into making this model, what are the kind of indicators, for example, that goes into this modeling under methodologies, this is where you can actually see, for example, if I want to understand on the long-term forecast. So if I click on the long-term forecast, this is where you can actually see the kind of methodology that goes into it. What's the kind of modeling that EIU actually uses? And what's the kind of factors that goes into it as well. All right, same for the business environment, same for example, short-term forecast as well. Okay, so this helps you to understand what goes into it. Last but not least, I do encourage you to actually set up this thing under My Alerts. So if you click on My Alerts, this is where you can actually set certain alerts for countries that you are interested in. So for example, as you can see, I've actually set an alert for all these countries. So every time when there's a new analysis piece, there's a new report that's been put out on all these countries, I'll actually get an email notification. And from there, this saves me the time and hassle from having to log in on a daily basis. Now, aside from countries, you can also do that for different reports, or even commodities. So for example, if I just want to be kept aware and kept updated on every time there is an article about crude oil, for example, I can click on crude oil and I can save, and this will actually help me to receive email notifications every time we put out. You can do the same for data as well, and also for the reports as well. So this is actually a very useful way to actually help you use Viewpoint as a best resource for finding all this information as well. So I have come to the end of the sharing. At this moment, I'd like to open it up to see if there's any questions. And before that, let me just go ahead and stop the screen recording.